Welcome to Women of a Certain Stage, the podcast redefining how we think about menopause. I'm your host, Lauren Turin, a passionate advocate for breaking the stigma and empowering individuals to navigate this transformational stage of life with confidence and clarity. Here, we're diving into a new era of menopause support, featuring expert advice, real-life stories, and actionable insights. Whether you're curious about building your personal menopause plan or you're looking to make an impact, you're in the right place. Let's embrace the change together. How are you?
After all that, you're feeling rotten strange doing this little prep, but I've been giving it a thought, and I did listen to Flalley's the other day, so that was good. And yes, you're right, it was very relaxed. It wasn't
Cool.
prescriptive or planned.
Oh God, no. So I've read your notes. You talked about this is probably going to go out in June now. So you will have done your talk in May. Yeah. So just with that in mind, and also you want to talk about your business, menopause workplace, the talk. Is there anything else changed since you made the booking?
I don't think so, no. I mean, obviously bits have changed, but don't think that takes me away from what I originally said.
Yeah.
You know, yeah.
Cool.
I mean, I guess what my offering has become is something very much around women in midlife as opposed to women in menopause. I've just found
Perfect.
It's become there's just so much synergy there. It was difficult for me to kind of ignore. So that's kind of landed.
Cool. Any thoughts, questions, or feedback before we dive in?
No, but I tell you what I will do is, can I just shut my son's bedroom door because my husband's now working and I can hear him too.
Cool. So you said you've used Riverside before, so you'll know at the end it will be uploading, so don't dive off anywhere so we don't want to lose anything. And so it's uploading the tracks in the background. So once that upload says 100% and it's all done, then we can jump off. Yeah. It's only happened once where we recorded like a 2.5 hour podcast and I lost the whole thing. Oh, no. And it was absolute, it was one of those conversations that was gold dust. And you're like, you can't recreate that because it's just so natural. So yeah, stay on at the end. I'll jump in and tell you anyway.
Yeah.
So apart from
I'm
that,
going to
should we
keep
dive in?
Quite relaxed though. I'm trying to not. This is actually something that I need to get better of in general in life, is not over planning. I'm a real.
You can't plan because you don't know what I'm going to say.
Yeah, exactly. Thanks. It's throwing me properly into the deep end. So yeah, slightly out of my comfort zone, but I've got to do more of this sort of unplanned, trusting myself moment stuff. So yeah.
Exactly. And I'm going to use, with your permission, I'm going to use that last 30 seconds just because I want that to be an example for people that you've been brave and you've booked the call, you're diving straight on into this. And sometimes we just have to take that step out of our comfort zone to be able to let people know that we're available to work with them. And this is such a great way to demonstrate that you're doing it. You're doing it.
Yeah. I've had to do quite a bit of that recently, actually.
Tell me a bit more about that.
Well, for exactly that reason, like I kind of came into this year thinking, right, I've got to make this. This feels so right, and I need to make sure I can create space to make this happen. Right, my menopause journey, my starting up my business, creating opportunities, building the brand, doing all these things that I wanted to do, all these touch points, and I found a brilliant book which I was just reading in terms of converting sort of dreams into reality, which is a manifestation book, which I thought was brilliant. And there was a big focus on project planning and creating your 4 big goals and then working on the small steps required to reach all of those goals. And, I made some very tangible goals, one of which was, seek or secure more speaking opportunities, more podcast opportunities, all of those things. It was like, right, well, if I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this, right? I've got to throw myself there. And I knew it was uncomfortable. And so, and it's funny because again, when you kind of throw that out there and you put it on paper, the universe kind of delivers you the opportunities. Suddenly they do appear. I'm not trying to be too woo-woo here, but they do. It's a very strange, that kind of laws of attraction piece is quite strange. So anyway, I've had a couple of exciting opportunities. Last week, I did a global talk around thriving through menopause, which was awesome. And I was very nervous about that. Wow. Very nervous.
Well done.
again, I just had to lean into it and I had to do it. And I did prepare a lot. I worked very, very hard on that content because I only had an hour and it was a large audience. So I knew I had to be quite prescriptive with what I was doing. But my God, it felt great afterwards.
Yay.
So good afterwards. And again, like today, as you know, I was, quite apprehensive coming to this and not having not prepared too much for it. But I'm like, no, I've just got to trust myself. And interestingly, I've got another thing on Monday, which is an in-person thing. It's a lot smaller. It's for 20 women who are, it's a business, or it's actually a charity that supports women returning to the workplace after a big career break. And they do this incredible program. It's 6 days of upskilling and confidence workshops and, you name it. And I spoke to them about what I do. And I explained, whilst these women aren't necessarily going through menopause, they're at that midlife crossroads where they've made a very conscious decision to go back to work and to, well, for whatever reason that may be, there will be multiple
many reasons
driven those decisions. Exactly. So, because kind of the foundation of the brand that I've launched, which is called Herself, is it's the art of self. I've created this thing called the art of self, which is about giving yourself permission to make time for yourself and to put yourself first. It's very much attached to that analogy around putting your oxygen mask on before you can help others. And because I found that, and I certainly went through this this entirely came from my personal experience years ago, but also with my friends and colleagues now, I see them really struggling to do that. That's still really living and struggling with that guilt, with that caregiver role and being very kind of unable to step away from that no matter what. And it's like, you really need to put yourself first, because if you don't, you will lose yourself and you won't be able to show up for these other people in your life who you love so much.
So let's go back to the point you made about the book you read and putting it out to the universe and the law of attraction and manifestation. There are going to be people that are going to listen to that and go, yeah, right, that is completely woo and that just doesn't happen. But it is something that happens, but there's more to it than that, because we can't just think something and then it's going to happen. So when you said the word project plan, actions, putting things in place, it's the activity and the energy that we put behind the goals that we have that makes the difference. And it's those small incremental changes. So going back to that, what are the similarities between you creating your business and actually coming to train to learn how to deliver the menopause plan, for example, in terms of taking your practice clients through the menopause plan, which is our signature coaching program? But what do you see as the analogies between the two of them?
I think it's firstly, it's very much around thinking as if you have already become what it is you want to become. So rather than saying, I would like to train to become a menopause, I would like to, invest, in this subject matter that I care deeply about and that means a lot to me because I'd like to give back to others. I think it's starting to actually, rather than seeing that almost as a future goal, say, no, I am a menopause coach, almost bringing it into the present. I am going to make this change. I am going to do this. This is what I'm doing now. It's in the present. It's live. I'm committing to it. It's almost just spinning the narrative slightly so that it becomes, rather than something abstract that's on a timeline or at the end of a timeline, it's in the present. I'm doing this. I'm committing to it. And I agree. Yes, absolutely. Like making, creating. Yes, I agree that manifestation can be quite woo-woo. And that's why I landed on this specific book, which was and I'm more than happy to send you that afterwards. I don't want to give any shameless plugs here, but it wasn't too woo-woo and it was very project, there were tangible, there was data and there was science and there was, tangible elements to it that made me think, okay, yes, this makes sense. I can lift and shift this into my day to day. And, making those say they're setting those however many goals, in my case, those 4 goals were very much one of those. And no matter how uncomfortable it may feel to say, I'm going to do this and I'm going to be this, or, embarrassing or ludicrous or whatever it is you might want to say, it was a case of saying, but I can, because if they can, why can't I? What's stopping me? And I think that's a similar thought process I had with the Menopause Coaching Diploma when I first came into contact. And I can remember going out for a drink with a friend and a really good mentor of mine. And he was just like, well, what's stopping you? And I said, well, I don't know. It just feels, I don't know, have I got the time? Have I got the money? And he was like, you're gonna find both things. He was like, these are just excuses. Like, no.
So let's take us back a little bit then. So what were you doing before menopause was even something that was on your mind? What was your background? Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, so I work in HR. So I haven't always worked in HR. I did a pivot actually just before I had my first child. I used to be account facing in marketing and advertising, which was, and I was working on a lot of global accounts at the times that made that unsustainable as I had children. So my eldest is 14 now. So that was about 15, 16 years ago. I made a pivot and moved into HR. It was a circumstantial pivot. I was within the business. I started to take on more kind of people focused tasks, and it grew from there. So that was, I was working in the people space. I had a period of time off. I had a voluntary redundancy situation, which gave me sort of 8 to 10 months off. And I used that time to, look inwards and go, right, well, do I want to stay in this HR space? Does this feel right? And at that point, I was like, actually, yes. Because at that point, what was starting to come through for me was the people element. That was the golden thread. I was like, I really enjoy working with people. I really enjoy, I was starting to become really interested in what makes people great versus not so great. What makes them have a good day versus have a bad day. Yeah. What makes them happy versus sad. What makes them more productive versus unproductive. And I used to find that fascinating because there was no black and white ever into those questions. It was always very contextual. Everyone had their own context. One person would work brilliantly with a certain manager, whereas they didn't with another manager. And again, that fascinated me. And so that took me into the world of psychometric testing, and I did a lot of training in that, which was brilliant. And then inevitably I ended up being pulled down a coaching route. And I did my normal coach training. I did that at a company called Barefoot, and thoroughly enjoyed that. But if I'm honest, it never really made any tangible difference to my day-to-day. I went back to my day job. After I completed that course, I probably didn't do nearly as much coaching as I would have liked within my role, a little bit, but nothing to speak of. And I think probably sat with me, actually. I think it wasn't a sort of dramatic emotion, but it definitely was I was definitely conscious of it. I was conscious of the fact that I'd invested a huge amount of my time and energy into, and money into that course. And I knew I loved it. I think I knew I had a natural talent to do it. And I nearly said I think, but I knew I did. And people would tell me that. But I found it very difficult to really lean into that and go, no, I'm going to do something with this. And then I started to go through some challenges in my personal life. And obviously that coincided with me going through menopause and perimenopause, where I still am now, and experiencing some quite significant moments personally, and thinking, okay, this is interesting. This is mad. And I kind of obviously found my way through that through various different means. But on that journey, realized that when I was having conversations with other women, that so many women were going through this crazy crossroads in this sort of midlife era, similar challenges to what I was going through. It's funny, was I knew I was coming to chat to you today. I was trying to think back to the moment where I either came, I genuinely don't remember, Laura, whether I went seeking a menopause coaching diploma, whether you came to me. I think it was the latter. I think you may have found your way into maybe one of my algorithms, but I remember seeing it and going, oh, yeah, this is interesting. Yeah. Oh, wow, there's something out there that actually addresses these women and these problems and these challenges in this period of life. Yeah. And then obviously the deeper I delved into it, I was like, oh, this is big. This is really interesting. And I think, that really starts to tie into my, interest and fascination in people and, neuroscience and behavioral science and all of that stuff. My own personal experience, and obviously what I was doing in the workplace. Obviously by this point in my HR career, I'd started to, support a lot of our leaders, many of whom were female. I'd had some very interesting encounters in those professional situations where, I'd have to come in and suddenly put on my kind of coaching hat with them and, dive into or draw from some of my own personal experience. I also personally really enjoy fitness. I go to biohacking studio, which sounds again a little bit woo-woo, but I take quite a vested interest in, or quite a big interest in all that stuff. I'm quite passionate about.
Is that an Aura ring I'm seeing you wearing?
It is an Aura ring, indeed. Yeah. So my tracker is there, and I read a lot about health and biohacking and supplementation and all that stuff. So suddenly all of this was coming together, and I think that's what I found. There was your diploma just seemed to be such a sweet spot where all of these passions seemed to kind of come together, and it just created this real point of focus. I was like, that's what draws all these passion points together. This is how I can package it up with a perfect little bow and go to market, go, this is what I deliver, this is who I can help, and this is how I can help.
So I know that anyone that's listening to this that isn't familiar with biohacking is going to be sitting there going, what on earth is a biohacking studio? So let's dive into that for a minute.
Oh gosh, yes, it is a little niche. I mean, it's essentially a fancy gym. I mean, my friend and acquaintance who runs the studio I go to would hate me for calling that, because he likes to be anything but a gym. He's like, this is not a gym. But it's essentially about, it's an environment that enables you to focus on the key parts of well-being. So obviously strength training is a massive part of that. So if you were to walk in, you would see that there is a lot of strength equipment there. There's also a lot of high-tech equipment there that can do kind of very efficient HIIT workout, high-intensity workouts, high-intensity cardio in a very short space of time because of the science and the data and the technology that they bring into those machines. There's obviously cold and hot therapies. That's one of the core pieces. So there's infrared sauna, which I'm a massive fan of, the traditional sauna. There are ice plunges, a cryo chamber. There's red light therapy and a hyperbaric oxygen chamber, which I delved into. I haven't quite got the finances yet to be able to do that on a regular basis, but one day. So all of these things that essentially contribute towards health and longevity. So, I know there's a lot out there around longevity and obviously living not just a long life, but living a long and strong
healthy
life.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So this is what these institutions essentially are invested in, is forcing people to.
It's interesting because I'm seeing some of the mainstream gyms going that way as well, and they've made big investments in doing that. When I was in Ellie at the end of last year, we were looking at portable hyperbaric chambers, and for $2,000 or $3,000 you can actually have your own blow up, if you like. It's not blow up, it's probably the wrong expression to use when we're talking about hyperbaric chambers, but your own portable hyperbaric chamber, if you've got space for it in your house, for $2,000-$3,000, which I thought was fascinating. And, have your little infrared sauna in one part of your house and your hyperbaric chamber in the other. But the information on the non-hard shell hyperbarics is very different from the portables. So the length of time you have to be in, the frequency you have to use them, the science is still catching up. So it'll be interesting, but it's really, I'm loving watching how so many of the gyms are moving in that direction and just bringing the awareness to people. But it ties right back into the very beginning of what you said, which is the self-care, putting your own oxygen mask on first, quite literally. So it sounds to me like all your work is tied into that. And rather than focusing actually on menopause, you're looking more about being healthy and well in later life. So as we pass through this midlife phase, by putting all the stepping stones maybe in place that we have neglected because we've been so busy looking after everyone else and doing for everyone else. So tell me a little bit more about your experience when you were on the diploma. Did it align with what your expectations were, and has it given you what you need going forward?
Oh gosh, 300%. Absolutely. The diploma itself, as I was doing it, I could absolutely see, from the outset that it was going to align to all of that. But I'm sure, as you say, and as many of your students have said, you do have to trust the process. You have to go through the process and wait till you get to the end, and that's when it really does all come together. And also, I think I certainly needed, because I was working full time whilst I was doing the diploma, and that I think, and to anyone listening, it was full on. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. You're having to do a lot. Put a lot of extra hours into that. But what I did, and I don't know if you remember, but just as we finished, we wrapped up on the live sessions.
Yeah.
I had a lot of the kind of coursework and the homework to complete, and I still have my practice clients to complete as well. And so I made a really difficult decision at the time, but oh my word, thank goodness I did. But I chose to take 2 weeks unpaid leave from work.
Oh, wow.
Just to completely and utterly immerse myself in everything that I'd learned, and to go back, rewatch all of the sessions, and to all of the learning tutorials, and to really connect with my practice clients so I could kickstart those sessions. And I think I needed that time. I needed that time to reflect, because again, it was only on reflection and looking back and rewatching some of those that they did really come together for me, and they really did land. And that was just, I'm so grateful to myself for doing that, for giving myself those 2 weeks. It was everything I needed, because it just gave me some headspace to really be able to appreciate everything I just learned and to draw it all together.
I think that's such an important point to make, because like you said with your HR, when you started getting interested in what makes people tick, why does one person work well with one manager and not with another? When you go through a learning process, we all learn differently. So some people whiz through the whole thing, do their learning reflections every week, and then get to the other end and feel like, yeah, I've done it. And then I'll hear from them 6, 8, 10 months down the line, go, I just popped back in to have another look at this section, you know. Or other people like, right, you go through it, but actually then do that really condensed view. My coach always says to me, the first time you go through something, whether it's a course or reading a book or whatever it is, just go through it. Don't bother with notes, just go through it.
Yeah.
And just absorb what you absorb. And then the second time, go through it and highlight the things that really stand out to you, or make your notes and think about what are the things that are really pertinent for you. And then the third time's the time when it really all absolutely, you know, sinks in, and then it comes to life for you. So I think it's really important. Just out of curiosity, when you said, you know, working full time, it's full on, you know, I'm going to sugarcoat it, and you're doing extra reading around it, how much time were you spending each week over and above the Fridays? This is something that always fascinates me, because I get different answers from everybody. There's no right answer here, obviously.
I think whilst the course was actually happening, probably, well, obviously on the reflections and the assessments, I think probably only a couple of hours a week, actually. I don't think it was a huge amount, but it was more, there was so much information, like every single week, and every single module was so information rich that you kind of needed to go back. Like in an ideal world, I would have gone back and gone through everything in the moment, you know, each week, and spent, you know, double, triple that amount of time, because there was just so much information, and I think in a good way, right? So I think, like you said, I think depending on your style, you know, you can take as long or as little as you need to invest in it. But I think if there is anyone that's contemplating doing this and they don't have, you know, they are concerned about time, if they are working full time, got caring responsibilities or whatever that may be, there is still a way around it. And, you know, I was that, you know, I paused at the end and I took the time and I went back, and that, if anything, I just remember thinking, I'm so pleased I did this. It just brought it all together for me. And I think, it was the best thing I could have done. And it meant also that, as I say, you know, when I did my previous coaching diploma, I didn't have that itch that it didn't convert. I didn't convert into anything. And having those 2 weeks and having that time to really sit with all of the information, thing I'd learned, and reflect, gave me probably it planted that first seed for me, which was, right, what am I going to do with this now?
Yeah.
What can I do? And that's when it all started to come together. You know, I very early on came up with the idea of my business name, which is Herself, which is, you know, female coaching space. And that suddenly felt exciting. That was like I birthed a child. I was like, oh my gosh, this has to be it. I can remember this. I think I might have asked you a question at one point on one of the calls where I was sort of doing loads of kind of competitor check to see if anyone else had the name. And I remember, I think you said to me, Ellie, focus on the no, don't run before you can walk. Just get the coaching done, practice clients done. And I was like, oh, but I just got this great brand name and I want to, you know, do something with it. But that gave me, you know, carrot that I needed, I think, just to get me so excited about what this could become. And I'm still very much in, you know, early stages. You know, I'm still very much at, you know, at rung one of all of this. but I'm still excited for what it can become. I'm so excited by it. And as I say, the only thing I think that's standing in my way is just being brave, really, and putting myself out there, which you're doing. So going through the actual program, you had a great cohort, which was very multinational, which I thought was brilliant. But what were your kind of key wins from the program or from the cohort? What were the kind of things that really spoke to you or landed with you as you went through the program? Yeah, I mean, I would agree that everyone on there we were just very lucky. It was so lovely. Every time we went into a breakout room, it felt warm, it felt friendly, it felt safe. We would have a giggle, sometimes we'd forget to do the exercise because we were just too busy having a catch up. We'd have to make it up after. But no.
And can we have feedback from 1 and 3, please? But we didn't quite get that far.
But no, everyone was, I think that is people that make it, right? And I think we were just very lucky to have, and also some really interesting backgrounds and some people that had so much to bring, from the kind of female, wellness space. So we had people, we yoga instructors, Pilates instructors, or medics, or, and there was it was just fascinating to have that. And also for those people to then bring in, how the thoughts and ideas around how they were going to be using it going forwards. And it was also a really brave bunch as well. Like they were, they had some, they still are, doing some amazing stuff. And that's been inspiring to me, when we have our graduate calls now to go in and see what everybody is doing and what they've built and what they're making. That's inspired me. That's given me it's like, come on, you can do this, you can do that too. And I think that's been really special.
And the fact that you've already done a global call, I mean, let's just celebrate that for a minute.
No, I know. That was great.
And that, for me, this is what it's all about. So my goal, my mission is to train 20,000 menopause coaches before I retire or die, whichever comes first. And when I hear that one of my grads so early on has already gone out and done something like that and has got other things booked in and is going to do a more intimate session with 20 people, that just makes my heart sing, because that's what this is all about. So where do you see yourself in 12 months? What are you working towards? What are you building, creating right now?
Oh, that's a good question, because I think I've spun a few times on that in the last couple of I think having done that global call, which by the way was in connection with my current employer, so I did just get that off my own, my own brand.
But you did.
Well, I did, but it was, as I say, within.
But you did, because you created the opportunity.
Yeah, I did.
And this is what we have as women. We're so bad at going, hey, I made that happen.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So you did make it happen because you put yourself in a position where you could open up that opportunity. Now that you've done that, there'll be people around the world who have heard you speak, who at some point in the future will now reach out to you and pick your brains or engage you or something else. So everything we do is a seed plant. I know that I've done talks all over the world, and I might not hear from anyone there and then, but within 6 months, 12 months, maybe even 2 years down the line, someone will get in touch and go, I remember when, can I speak to you about? And that's the magic. So you did create it, and I'm not going to let you take that away from yourself, but celebrate that with you. So, and the other thing, I think to the point where you've spun around in that in a couple of times, the last couple of months, I never set out in 2013, 2014 to train people to become a menopause coach. That was never my horizon. And I think the beautiful thing about running your own business is it doesn't ever have to be any one thing for any period of time. You get to create it and design it and redesign it and let it be like a phoenix, rising up from the ashes as many times as you want.
Yeah.
So what's today thinking about where you're going to be in 12 months' time?
I have to say, I am enjoying being able to do group addresses. I think coming in, it's because I did another group coaching, but much smaller, a group coaching session, again, at my current employer. That was, and whilst, the one-to-one coaching is obviously really impactful, and running through the whole menopause plan is really impactful. And I enjoy doing that. In fact, actually, I want to I need another client right now because I'm missing doing the one-to-one at the moment. I am really, there's something really quite amazing about being able to address a group and make a difference to such a big group of people in kind of 2 hours, whatever that may be. So I would love to do more of that. And again, I'm enjoying becoming braver in public speaking as well. So that's something that test that skill set too, which I'd like to try and expand on. So I think I'm on a bit of a mission within my current age. I would like to really try and expand my role as, a female leadership port, as part of maybe, falling maybe more into the D&I team, or maybe into the benefits team. I don't know where that falls, maybe but a bit of both, but I would love to try and carve out a bigger role for me in that space. That's something that would be the dream. At the moment, obviously, I still have my day job within that business, the same business. I hope there's no one from my business listening. I could just send them this for my kind of career conversation. But obviously, at the moment, I have my HR job, so I will continue, doing that and fitting in wherever I can. But I would love for this to just take up much more of my week, if I could. That would be the dream, and then the absolute dream. But at some point down the line, to be able to maybe drop my hours or my my paid job and be able to do some sort of one-to-one clients. Also, support other businesses, external. That would be, I mean, the thing I'm doing on Monday is external, but obviously that's a charity. So, I think that's where I'd like to get. I'd also like to create a bit more of an online community. I think that's something else that's I know it is because it's on my double goals notepad. I'd like to try and create a bit more of a community. I'd like to build out a brand, and just be able to put content out there that's going to support women. And I know the market's probably a little saturated in that respect, but
not even remotely. If you think, look, let's put it. I love this conversation. This is something I could talk about for a whole hour. Right? People say the market's saturated. The market is growing exponentially. Is growing. Not necessarily a good thing. Not necessarily a bad thing. But the market's growing, which means the opportunities are growing. And I think if we think about weight management and we look at the weight management side of life and think about how long that's been around and how much it's evolved and shaped and changed over the years, not always good, not always bad, but it's evolved and shaped and changed. Now we've got GLP-1s and all sorts of other things going on as well. So that is a market that's just continued to evolve and change, as has the health and wellbeing or the fitness or the gym market, when we look at that side of things as well. So I think what will stand out is someone who is factual, poignant, who is out there getting great messaging across. So I'm curious, just looking back to your initial career, when you look at being involved in marketing, how do you think that plays in and helps you out with this going forward?
That might be why I got so excited when I had my brand name. Actually, got more excited about that than the content. I do think it's important. I think branding is important. I think, I mean, I know I'm certainly not by no means the first person to say that. And I think that absolutely, I think that the industry is growing and the space is growing. I think obviously we know that the wellness space is huge and that maybe is slightly saturated. However, the demand is still there for it. And I think that's why, the supply can keep coming. And I think, and obviously I have to remind myself that my algorithms are probably overloaded because it's my algorithm, right? But I think, yes, I think the demand continues to be there. And I said this actually, I think on my LinkedIn post the other day, but every time, like that thing I did, the global session I did last week, the comments in the chat afterwards, it still amazes me how surprised people are when this content is brought to them. How, I feel seen. Oh my God, I feel heard. Like, I can't believe that this is exactly how I'm feeling. And you're like, wow, like, I think
because we're living and breathing it all the time. Exactly. So we forget that people still don't know.
Exactly.
And we are actually still in the minority, which is terrifying.
Yeah.
But it's the facts. So
I think that probably is a good reminder for me that it's, my algorithms obviously are very, very consistent, but other people, they're not, and they're not getting all that data that I'm getting on a day-to-day basis. So does that answer your question? I've forgotten what your question is.
I'm curious, what lights you up outside of work? What lights you up?
Well, obviously exercise, movement, me time. I think me time is, finding time where I can do anything that's going to calm my nervous system. I have two children, 2 boys, I have other stresses going on, in the background, as do so many other, women of this point in their lives. And I think, and actually I think finding the kind of medicinal quality of creating me time. However I feel that, whether it's exercise, whether it's not even sitting downstairs and watching a movie, because sometimes I actually find that even overwhelming, honestly. Sometimes I can't switch off and unwind if I've watched a movie. Just being, it's lying in bed, lighting a candle, reading a book, doing a face mask, whatever it is, going for a walk in nature, which I'm doing so much more than I ever used to before. I think anything that sort of that serves me, that helps calm my nervous system, that is what lights me up. So obviously my children and my cat, I should know that.
We always feel guilty if we don't put them in there, don't we? And so I'm obviously speaking to many of my grads, which I'm really grateful for you for giving me your time to have this conversation today. And one of the common themes throughout the Menopause Diploma is about accessing our parasympathetic nervous system, being able to get that rest digested state. Yeah. Do you want to elaborate a little bit more about why that's so important? So anyone listening that's maybe going, what's the difference between sympathetic, parasympathetic, and what does that mean, and why do we want to get in there? Do you want to just share a little bit more about?
Well, yeah, absolutely. I mean, your emotional regulation and your nervous system is one of the most, critical systems within your body, because when you're, and this links to obviously our adrenal health module, which we had, I can't remember what number that was. But, when we are stressed and when our adrenal system is stressed, then we are going to be releasing very unhelpful hormones I'm not looking at Lauren, correct me if I'm wrong. But cortisol is going to rise, your adrenaline is going to rise. And what those things do is they can create inflammation in the body. And inflammation is what then leads to all sorts of physical and mental ailments that have to also be, symptoms of menopause. And so when our nervous system is in check and when it is calmed and when we are managing all of that and keeping all of that, where it needs to be, then all of our systems can then work better. Our nervous, our whether it's our digestion or our heart health or our brain health, all of those things are going to feel calmer and they're going to be able to function better in terms. Yeah. And I, without a doubt, I feel that those, I'm very sensitive with my nervous system. When I do feel elevated, when it isn't in check, then I do find that my digestion slows down. I feel bloated. I feel like my sleep is good. Horrendous readings on my Aura ring overnight. I get skin issues. All of these things that can happen simply from your nervous system being dysregulated. And so it's just really about finding what are the things that help you keep it in check. Can you do that? Can be very different one person to the next. Yeah. So it's finding what works for you, and making sure that you again make time for it. Find your me time. Overlook the guilt. Step away. Put your oxygen mask on first.
Yeah, fantastic. Ellie, what have I not asked you about today that you'd maybe like to share before we wrap up?
Nothing. I mean, I guess the one thing I was thinking actually was, the one kind of connector between my HR job and obviously what I've been doing around the menopause plan is the workplace impact of menopause. It is huge. And obviously as we go into 2027, we're going to be seeing an update around the employee rights bill. We're going to see the menopause plan come into effect, and businesses are going to have to report, data around their support for menopausal women. And, it is huge. We've got, these incredible, experienced women that are coming into, senior leadership roles at that around that midlife period, just as they're starting to face, these health challenges. And I think it is so critical for businesses to support them because, otherwise that cost to business of losing them is huge. I think, there's something like 70% of women reported that they feel unsupported at work. 1 in 10 leave because of, unmanaged menopausal symptoms. So, I think, it is huge. It is a talent conversation. It's a workplace conversation. And it's one that, and I think that, again, that's where my two sort of passions can come together line. And that's, I think, when when I'm going to the business and I'm trying to present a business case in order to secure, opportunities, or whether it is funding down the line, that's what I need to take to them, is saying, this is the business case. There is such a strong business case for this.
I think it's interesting. We've got the new cohort starting on Friday this week at the point of recording, and I was going through the library just quickly to check for a few documents and see if some links were working and different things like that. And I actually went into the menopause and work section in the library in my student portal for my students, obviously my grads. And menopause and work is now one of the biggest sections in there. There's so much more information available. There's so much information around the world becoming available. So I'm excited about that going forward. It means that we've got that current research, we've got access to the data and all the information that we need to be able to go out and work with organisations and work in our own organisations as well. So I am super excited to hear how herself progresses and develops. And I'm really grateful to you for spending time with me today. What would you say to anyone to close about someone that's maybe sitting on the fence about the diploma? What would you say to them about investigating it or thinking about doing this going forward?
Well, I would obviously say to go for it. I would definitely actually do know somebody who is on your. I came into contact with someone who's starting on
fab.
this month. Yes, and she was very, very excited to start. I would say do it. I really would. I would say you'll be surprised what a difference it makes, not just for yourself, not just for the people that you love around you, the other females around you, but actually for the men around you, for your the people that you're going to go on and help, the people that your colleagues, your friends, your peers. This stretches beyond just the menopausal women. This is a whole self audit. What we look at, as part of the plan, is a whole self audit, and that's relevant to everybody. All that we look at is about helping people achieve better health and stronger health and more longevity, irrespective of their age or gender. So I think whatever happens, you're going to get incredible out of it. So I would absolutely encourage anyone to go for it.
Amazing. Thank you so much for your time today, and I will be watching with interest and supporting from the wings.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for joining me on Women of a Certain Stage. I hope today's episode inspired you to think differently about menopause and the incredible opportunities this stage of life brings. If you enjoyed this episode, please share it with 3 friends who need to hear this message. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and leave a review. It helps us reach even more people. You can connect with me on LinkedIn at Lauren Turin, or visit our website at womenofacertainstage.com to learn more about menopause coaching, inspiring events, and corporate training. Until next time, let's continue making a difference, one conversation at a time.